Welcome to the Modern Hippie podcast, where we'll be exploring all of my favorite boundary-pushing people and topics surrounding consciousness, psychedelics, mental performance, functional medicine, living in alignment, and so much more. I'm your host, Barrett Perlman, a former pro wakeboarder turned body worker, energy healer, and well, a modern hippie. And I'm so glad you're here. I am so excited to announce my guest today, my best friend and soul sister of many things. I am here with Leah Drew.
Hi.
And Leah, you are a pain management expert. I would say you do like functional medicine too, trauma-informed empowerment coaching and therapies. What am I missing?
That's a lot of the things. I'm an awareness coach. I'm a pain management specialist. I'm a movement specialist. And ultimately, I help people that are struggling in different aspects of their life, physically, mentally, emotionally, and energetically. And I support them in gaining more tools and more awareness so that they can better heal themselves and live a life that feels really fucking good to them.
Sounds amazing.
I love it.
I love it too. Sounds like something everyone could be using in their life, really, for the most part. So maybe we should all be going to you.
I wish I could just sprinkle a little bit of my sparkles on all the people around me in the world. That's what I try to do.
You could. You can.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
Well, I'm so glad to have you join me today because you are the first person I've ever really met who is basically into like everything that I'm into. Like everything. Yeah. There's a few exceptions.
When we say we're sisters, like we're sisters.
Yeah. It's wild. Even our lives are like relatively parallel and we go through similar things at similar times. And
patterns and pain. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so something I would love to start with talking about is I went to you last week to help me with, I was being trauma triggered, as you pointed out, by a guy that I've been seeing, not by him really, but by a conversation that we had. And I found myself like unable to get out of bed and having this just like blackout response. And you were the one who was like, hey, that's a trauma response. And I was like, oh, I'm not trauma triggered. I don't have trauma. It turns out I was totally wrong. And I stopped and I sat with it and I thought about where it was coming from. And I realized that you were right. And it was my response to him was stemming from this boyfriend from like 14 years ago.
Yep.
And so you invited me to do story work. And I have been explaining story work to so many people since because like no one has a clue what I'm talking about.
I love it.
And it is, I have to say, like one of the wildest, coolest things I have done. I had sort of a similar experience last year while I was writing my book, and I had written a lot about my mom, and it helped me weirdly reframe my relationship with my mom. So I thought I understood the power of writing out your story. And then I got with you and realized that there was a whole different world surrounding it that I could have been doing. So can you explain what is story work?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for allowing me to support you in that process last week. It was one of the most powerful experiences I've had. Story work alone is powerful, but being able to do that with you was truly transformational for me as well as it was for you.
Yeah, I saw your post. You were like, this is one of the most powerful story work sessions I've ever done.
It was.
Why? With like, just because it was me and we have this connection, or like?
Yes. And just knowing you, knowing your life, being in it with you, and being able to, being trusted to that level by you was really powerful for me. Being able to dive deep into things that you probably don't talk a whole lot about with a lot of people. And that's something that I really cherish, is being allowed to hold that space for people in my life, especially people that are my friends, that are my family, because it's a very vulnerable place. And I'm a really true believer that vulnerability is what really heals the deepest depths of our soul. And so storywork is truly one of the most powerful modalities that I have found, and I have a lot of modalities in my toolbox. A lot of them. And I love it. Always more. Like, we're always looking for more. And storywork by far has proven to yield the most powerful and fast results that I've seen, and especially when it comes to working with trauma. And trauma is something that every person on this earth experiences, whether that be watching a stressful event, whether that be being a part of a stressful event. You could be watching a car accident. You don't even have to be the one in the car accident.
Oh, wow.
And so your brain and your body remembers all of these things in your subconscious. And what we then do is we create these different ways to live and prevent ourselves from re-experiencing that situation over again. And so our body remembers that stressful experience and does everything it possibly can to avoid it moving forwards. That can be really supportive because it helps us to protect ourselves in some ways, but it also can really hinder us. And you had that experience last week where you had this experience in your everyday life that reminded you of the experience that you had 14 years ago. And that's the thing, it doesn't matter how recent the experience was. It could be 14 years ago, it could be 25, it could be 50 years ago. Your brain still remembers. And so what then happens is once you're triggered is you then end up spiraling. You end up in this space where you're doing everything you can. You're trying to build your life around protecting yourself from experiencing this thing and re-experiencing this thing. And a lot of times it causes a lot of stress. It causes a lot of anxiety. And those are the physical, right? Like feelings, experiences that we're having that we can put words to. But ultimately it dysregulates the nervous system. Mm-hmm. When the nervous system is dysregulated, it causes a lot more things to happen, like a domino effect. And that's a lot of times where chronic disease starts, is with this chronic activation of the nervous system and constantly being in the state of fight or flight or flee. Could be fleeing.
I was trying to flee.
You were definitely trying to flee.
Flee was my response. Felt really good in flee.
And what storywork does is it goes in and it really grasps the roots of why. Where did this start? Because the trigger is normally something that's happened in the past.
Yeah.
Could be an experience that you just had. For example, if you were just in a car accident and that car accident has really stressed out your body and you're unable to let that fear and that stress and those experiences go, right? That's something that's recent. But most of the time it's things from the past. And so what storywork does is it goes in and it really uncovers the roots of, well, where is this coming from? And there's a beautiful 4-step process that I use when I'm working through story work. And first, you have the client write the story. And after they write the story, they read the story. And they read it in different cadences. And as we know, and as you know about tone, right? A different cadence and a different tone stimulates a different response from the body. And so by going through and reading it in different at different paces, it then allows you to process in deeper ways, and it allows that energy that's been trapped in your body for 14 years to then flow out. And everybody has a different response at a different time through the story work. Sometimes there's an emotional response reading the story. Other times it's writing the story. And other times it's at the end where we then start to reframe the anchor at which we are thinking about the story. And so at the end, there's usually this statement that somebody comes out with after reading it, after writing it, something that they feel, something that they experienced, and it becomes an anchor into the story. And when you start to reframe the words of that anchor, you then start to experience the story that you wrote in a very different fashion.
Right.
And a big part of working with story work is incorporating breath work into that story itself.
That was very powerful for me. And I thought very, I don't want to say, I guess intuitive is the wrong word, but it felt intuitive to me, like, oh, of course we would want to do breath work to down-regulate my reaction to the nervous system, to the stories, but clearly it's much more well thought out than just being intuitive.
Yeah, and that's the big difference, and I'm sure that was probably something that you noticed between writing your book and writing your stories, and then taking the breath and incorporating it into the story.
Right.
And go ahead.
I was just going to, well, like, no one would want to read my book if it wasn't passionate and, like, overly, you know, all of my thoughts. But in story work, we're trying to, like, bring that down.
Yeah. And that's the powerful part about story work, is it's not just about reading and writing what happened. It's about down regulating the experience of that story. And so when you take the breath and you literally incorporate it into every sentence, every but, every and, what that does is it then down regulates the intensity to which your body is responding to that memory. Mm-hmm. And it starts to break it up, because that sympathetic response that you're having, which is that fight, flight, or flee. There's a lot of F's. That it then brings the breath in. And so that it brings a parasympathetic response to that experience and down regulates how intense your body feels the thing.
Yeah.
And that's what you experienced last week, is the ability to down regulate your response and take a different perspective at the end and look at, like, what was happening. And I watched you go from being the victim to removing yourself from that seat of the victim and actually being able to see past that trauma response and see, like, what was at the root of it. And it wasn't you.
It wasn't me at all. So to give you guys a little bit of more detail behind what we're talking about, the guy I've been seeing, you know, I came back from Guatemala, we had a chat, and he sort of prefaced with, well, you know, it takes like a long time before people end up in a relationship. And I was sort of like, what? I thought we were moving very fast, and I thought you were on board with fast. And it just all of a suddenly triggered in me this, like, oh no, he might still walk away at any minute. And so I started spiraling in this, oh my gosh, I thought we were already kind of doing this, and now I'm finding out he still potentially desires to, like, walk away at any minute. And when you challenged me to sit with it, I reflected on a boyfriend past who was really my only, not my only, he was my most toxic relationship, but certainly somewhat emotionally abusive. And within a month of us first dating each other, he had found out about my past, that I had slept with one of his friends before he and I even started dating, and it sent him into this whole whirlwind of, that's not what I wanted in a girlfriend, but now I already love you, and now I'm fucked. And you know, it just, my original story was that he would never love me as deeply as he had intended to, that I was kind of never enough because of that, and that at any, you know, we broke up several times and got back together, so it was always like rocky, I was on edge about when is he gonna leave. He's always about to leave me, and I'm always in trouble for something that I feel like I didn't do. And so the story work was just powerful, because once you know, the first time I wrote the paragraph, was a paragraph, really, long paragraph about this initial trauma event trigger. And then we started, when you had me slow down and add the slow down and read the story, that was hard, because the first time you really get to just gloss over it and you get to be strong. I get to be the warrior Barrett.
What happened when you slowed it down?
Barrett became a little exposed. And so that was powerful, and to see what I had written and where it really actually hurt. And then you had me go back and add the breath into it.
Yep.
And you added so many breaths into it, I thought we were never going to finish.
That was your first comment. You said so many breaths. And you needed them. You needed every single one of those breaths.
I even had to take some of them quite a few times. And so we went in then and deregulated the story that I had already told, my victim story. And after that, you started to, from a trauma-informed healer place, helped me begin to rewrite it. And not like we rewrote the whole paragraph, but you would pick primary topical points and write it out in your words of summarizing how I felt. And sometimes it was wild to see it just so blatantly summarized into a sentence, you know, and then you would sort of give it a little bit of a reframe on the next one. And I would have to read these out loud again, also with breath. And you finally got to this one. I forget what it was leading up to it. It was that because of my past, I wasn't enough, something like that. And then you wrote something like, I was never going to be enough for him. But we got to the point where you wrote, I have always been enough. Yeah. It wasn't about me. That's what it was. It wasn't about me. It was never about me. And I just remember I like looked up at you all of a sudden, and like, I've done so much work on myself. I've done so much work on recent relationships around me, and I've never gone back decades and applied that work because I do believe that I am enough, and that, you know, most stuff isn't about you, isn't about me. And it was like this giant light bulb went off in my head, because that had never occurred to me about that relationship. And I got so excited. I mean, first off, I broke down. I started sobbing. Bless your heart. You came around the table.
There were crystals, there were hugs, there was sage and Palo Santo, like all up in our business.
I was like stuffing crystals in my bra, trying to like just get like.
I do have this photo of you with this crystal on your head and this crystal in your boobs, and like.
I was trying to.
And then you were doing handstands.
Yeah. So then we had this breakthrough, and I'm sobbing, and she comes around and she's holding me, and I'm just sobbing into you, releasing this pent up stuckness that relationship, who had often felt like the one who got away, the one I thought about for years after, you know, just letting that all finally go, because it was never about me. And then we got to some other parts where I had written that he would never again love me as deeply as he had intended to. And you wrote, he didn't love himself deeply. And I was like, oh shit. Hadn't stopped to reflect that back onto him.
Yeah. How can he love you deeply if he doesn't love himself deeply?
He can't. You can only love someone to the depths at which you love yourself. Yeah. And so that was another groundbreaking sort of thing to me, that, you know, he didn't love himself deeply, so he would never love me deeply. And like, just unfortunately, I was his girlfriend. And it's been so wild for me how healed everything around that is, you know. And I thought, from having seen him, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years ago or something, that like I kind of identified. I was like, man, I don't even think he's happy. And I felt really good about not being with him, you know, that our lives didn't stay together forever. Because I was like, I see many places he could be much happier, and that makes me sad for him, but not my place to fix him or his life.
Yeah.
And so that story work really just reframed, so it like freed me from this captive cage that I didn't realize. I've now been able to see where that has applied to almost every relationship I've ever had, where I hit this point of being so scared that someone's just going to walk away at any minute. And that's my trauma response, that like I'm not enough because they're about to walk away. And who knows when they'll walk away, but they've put me in an unsafe place that they're going to walk away.
Never, because it reminded you of that past experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing about storywork is like, it's like this reset button, because then you're noticing that, one, your awareness is heightened. You now have the ability to be the observer in a very different way than you ever have been. And it changes your body. It changes your physiology. It changes your biochemistry. Like when you can go in deep and really like rewrite and reprogram those traumatic experiences that have played a really big role in your life and who you are and why you have become who you are. And that's great. We want you to be exactly who you are. But we want to prevent your body from re-experiencing that stressful thing. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, it changes everything. It heals, deeply heals.
Deeply heals.
And the cool part and that I want to touch on too is, you know, we talked about this aspect of there being affirmations. And with storywork, yeah, these affirmations and these statements that we come up with are really important. But it's very different than the general affirmation that you come out with on a daily basis, right? I am strong, I am enough. Great. That's great because yes, we want you to use those affirmations. However, through storywork, you're using your own words. I'm just the guide, right? To help you rephrase these statements. And in each statement transition, I'm connecting back to the story that is behind that affirmation. Mm-hmm. Or that statement, right? And so it's not just this general affirmation. It is this rewritten story and down-regulated experience in your nervous system through just expressing that affirmation. So it's a little bit different because it's not just putting words on top of words to try to memorize them and try to feel them. Mm-hmm. You're literally changing a story, changing a memory, not changing a memory, but down-regulating the experience of the memory. And through that, coming out with an affirmation that resonates even deeper.
Mm. So powerful.
Yeah.
Is this someone's technique that you learned?
Yeah, I learned this through the Enlifted coaches. Mm. Yeah. Enlifted they're great. It's a great program. Highly recommend for anybody that's interested in diving deeper into storywork. Yeah, Mark is amazing, Mark England, and he beautifully guides you through this experience. And the greatest thing about this program is it's not just them sitting here teaching you information, you're going through it. So I went through all the things that I put you through to really understand, to really feel, right? And then I had my session with Mark and he guided me through this and it just completely changed my life. It opened space for me to have the relationships that I desire, to call in the man that I desire and recognize what I deserve and why I wasn't allowing myself to receive that because of my past stories with my father. And so Mark guides you through this incredible coaching experience, and then you get to learn and then guide other coaches through it. And so it's very much this, like, you're immersed in it, and that's how you learn it. And I think that's, in my opinion, how people learn best.
Sounds wild. Like, that's actually after going through that with you. I know I was sitting there looking at you crying, and I was sort of like, I'm looking at you, and you're kind of crying with me too, and I don't know that I want to be you. I don't know that
it's definitely not for the faint-hearted, that's for sure.
But I've talked to so many clients about it, so many people about it since that experience, because I can't stop raving about it. Obviously, it's what we're starting this podcast with. And now I'm sort of like, well, you know, maybe I do want to learn it.
It's a really powerful modality to have. And, you know, I definitely think that it works best when incorporated with the other tools that you have. And I'm sure that there are ways that storywork can be integrated that I'm not doing, in ways that I'm not doing it, you know. But that's how I see learning, and any information and any education is taking what feels good, leaving what doesn't, and integrating it in your own ways. Mm-hmm. It's not about stepping into somebody else's system. It's not about taking somebody else's hat and putting it on your head. Mm-hmm. It's about looking at somebody else's hat, looking at the details, and wondering, hey, what do I want to add to my hat?
Yeah.
Right?
Interesting. Yeah, because, you know, healing is not a one-size-fits-all. Like, not every person has the same synapses going in the same place, and it's definitely really important to make those, distinguishments between how can I best help you, and that might look different from how I can best help you. And I think that's really beautiful in how you and other coaches I'm seeing are starting to put together their programs, where it's like, well, I can't just tell you I'm going to do this, this, and this, and this is our program. It's like, I need to talk to you. I need to figure out what you want, what you need, and then I can build out a program that's going to specifically suit you and your needs.
That's why I love connection calls. I love discovery calls, connection calls, whatever you want to call them. A lot of coaches don't do them. And for me, it gives a lot of insight into this person. It helps me not just learn about them, but learn if they're a good client for me, and if I'm a good fit as a mentor and a coach for them, right? And I think that those calls are so damn valuable, because without those, you don't really have an understanding of what this person is going through. You don't really have a full understanding of what you can do to support them and what kind of support they're looking for based off of their goals.
Yeah, well said. Because I will be offering my first coaching program in August.
Yay.
And yeah, it's something I'm excited to step into my power of, and I've been watching my impact on my friends and my clients around me as it is, and deciding it's time to build something. So I love having you as the example in my life that I look to for what is she doing? How is she doing it? Can I copy that? And I've looked at some of the things you do and gone like, you know what? That's not authentic for me, which has been a beautiful experience, because I was like, oh, I'll just copy what Leah does, but like, we can't always be twins. I love you. I love you too.
But that for anything, like, you've got to be able to look at anybody, anything, any experience, and say, that feels really good, and that doesn't. I'm going to leave that at the door. Because if it's not in alignment with you, your values, how you want to show up in the world, how you want to feel, it's not going to be authentic to you, and it's not going to bring you abundance, because it's not in alignment with you. It's in alignment with someone else.
Well said. I want to dig a little bit also into pain management, because you and I are both massage therapists, but you have definitely evolved more of what you do into full body pain integration. Like, I love to release traumas in the body specifically, but you kind of love to tackle these chronic problems. Help my listeners understand how traumas get stuck in the body.
Trauma gets stuck in the body in a lot of ways. But ultimately, like we talked about in that stress response, right? Your body remembers everything. Your cells remember everything. Your cells have almost these little ears on them, on the outside of them, that are listening to everything and that are taking in information every second of every day. And your body stores that until you actually allow it to be released. And a lot of times it leads to chronic pain, chronic inflammation, and chronic disease symptoms, because the longer that your body's in this state of stress, fight or flight, or holding on to this lower vibrational energy, the harder it's going to be for your body to optimally function well. And in order to feel good, to have a clear mind, to be living in high vibrational states of being, right? Emotions, thoughts, we've got to be functioning optimally. And when I'm working with clients that come to me that are usually struggling with some type of chronic disease, some type of chronic pain, some type of injury, that's where I started looking at the body in these 4 pillars: the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the energetic. Because I believe that if you do not target one of those pillars, the person is not going to have a stable foundation to build on. And so when I'm working with them, we're looking at all of the above and helping them reduce whatever symptoms are coming up, whatever symptoms they're experiencing. I personally don't love diagnoses. I tend to find that people marry them and become their diagnosis. Yes, a diagnosis can help you understand, based off of Western medicine, what is happening more deep, on a deeper level, let's say. And where functional medicine and where holistic healthcare really comes in, is taking that, looking at all of the components, the physical health, your health history, what happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago. How are your stress levels? How are your sleep? How is your sleep, right? How are all of these components that are influencing your being, your energetic being? Everything around you is energy. You are energy.
We're pure energy.
All of it.
Yeah. We just happen to like squeeze them together tiny enough that we look like solid objects.
We somehow are a thing.
But like this cup I'm holding in my hands right now is made up of quantas and quarks, and they are literally just pieces of energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And healing is the same way, right? And that's one of the reasons I love being able to collaborate with you, because energy is everything for us. It is our source, literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
And when I'm helping people heal, it's a matter of looking at what's influencing the energetics of your body that is creating these experiences physically, mentally, emotionally, and ultimately fueled by these energetic shifts. And so taking a look at your relationships, taking a look at the products you're using in your life, taking a look at how you're moving your body, taking a look at how you're thinking during the day, right? What you're feeling emotionally. That all plays a role in your chronic pain, your chronic inflammation, your chronic disease symptoms.
Oof. What you're saying hits home right now, because my brain has been a little spirally the last few days, and I feel like shit.
Yeah.
You know, I had this great diet while I was in Guatemala where they brought me and fed me basically two vegetarian meals a day. They were very big. Like breakfast was 2 meals, you know, just so they didn't have to come back for the third one. It was pretty much what I determined. But when I left there, I was like, damn, like my body feels really good. And what did I stick to while I was there? I really cut out gluten. There was no gluten. There was no dairy. And there was no meat. But I've since added some meat back in since I've been home, and fish. I love fish. Can't live without fish. That's just silly. And I'm still continuing to feel really great. And I notice here at home when I slip a little bit how tired I am the next day or how kind of shitty I feel. But I'm also having these thoughts that I'm battling right now, that like the negativity is really trying to get in, and I'm trying to fight it with positivity, and it's like the dark angel's battling the white angel, and like everyone's at war right now in my head. And you know, this morning I was just kind of like, I need a distraction. I like need someone else to talk to me. So I put a podcast on, and
it was a great podcast.
Yeah, I was listening to this Dr. Caroline Leaf, who has a system called Neurocycle, who's just mind-boggling what she does. She's a scientist who spent basically her life's work dedicated to researching how to change the brain without medication. So curing depression, curing mental disorders, curing personality disorders, anxiety, all that kind of stuff, just with changing your brain. And she had someone on and they were talking, and one of the things she actually brought up was like, it's okay to give yourself distractions from the anxiety causing things. Like it's okay to identify that like you can't do the work right now and you have to live your life and you just need a distraction.
Yeah.
Whether that's read a book, listen to a podcast, hang out with a friend, you know, something. So
and that's important too. And I also on that note as well, like what's also important is to not like allow that distraction to be a constant, right? Like coming back to it and actually working with the thing, right? And not just brushing it under the rug and saying, okay, like see you later, walking away from it.
Yeah.
Because that's how that energy gets trapped in your body.
Right. And so a lot of clients come to you. I have a lot of clients as well that have trauma stuck in them. I like to force it out with my thumbs.
Which I do sometimes too. And I also like to teach my clients how to do that for themselves. Yeah. Touch yourself here. Yeah. Oh, that's a good spot.
Yeah, right? I enjoy getting people to tears, to like crying it out, because really if I touch you somewhere, and you shouldn't be crying when I touch you there.
There shouldn't be pain when you touch the human body. There should not be.
Yeah. So if there is, let's cry it out. Let's start moving it, because that's a sign that energy is stuck in that area.
And that's where I've always found Western medicine to fall short, is like if you think about any time you've gone to the doctor, they don't do very in-depth physical assessments of your body. You know, you think about when they like, the most they'll do is like touch your belly a little bit, right? Just like the very surface of your belly. And they're like, oh, you're good. I took a course called ANF Therapy a couple of years ago. And I spent 3 months in Spain. And I learned how to, it was incredible. I learned how to assess the human body in a way that blew my socks off. And anytime I touch a client, anytime I lay my hands on someone, almost always their comment is, wow, why has no one ever touched me like that before? Why has nobody ever assessed me like that before? I've been to so many doctors. Why haven't they touched my body like that? And because they're not taught to, they don't know how to, they don't understand. That's not part of their education,
right? Which
is where holistic practitioners really, really come in handy these days, is being able to support people in ways that Western medicine is just not taught how to. And I understand that can be really frustrating for people, where they're like, I haven't found the help. Why haven't I found the help? Why haven't they told me this information? It's because they don't know. They're not educated in it, right? Because that's not what they're taught. Unfortunately, that's not how the system makes its money.
Not at all. And that's, I think, why they keep forcing us into this system. Although the irony is, if we could actually heal the body, there would be less hospital bills. There would be less things for insurance to pay out. And
much less.
They clearly are the ones who don't want to pay. Like, sure, the hospitals would love to have you keep coming, but they're at the mercy of the insurance companies paying those bills.
It's this dirty cycle. It really is. And that's why I'm so grateful for people like you, right? To have the job that I have. Because we get to support people when they feel as though nobody else has been able to do so.
Right. You have done some of this ANF therapy on me. What does the ANF stand for?
Good question. ANF Therapy is Amino Neurofrequency Therapy. I am one of approximately 30 of the highest trained practitioners in the world.
Oh, snap. I didn't know that about you.
Yeah.
Go, girl.
I stay humble.
Yes, you do.
But I have put a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort into learning this modality. And it's helped me understand the body, how the organs work with one another, how to really understand, like, why someone's having pain and where the pain is coming from. Because a lot of times someone comes into me with lower back pain, and it's like, okay, well, let's assess the gut. Let's assess the spine. Let's assess the occipital nerves. Let's assess the adductors. We want to really get a good understanding of, okay, well, why is this back pain happening? And so ANF therapy, it is a wearable frequency therapy that ultimately optimizes and enhances the body's ability to heal itself. And so it's sending signals and information energetically through these little stickers. They're called discs.
Yeah, they look like little circular Band-Aids almost. Yeah. They're skin colored and...
a little shiny. They got some cool little guys on it.
Yeah, they're non-invasive. They just sit on you like a Band-Aid.
Yep, they last for 3 days. It instantaneously reduces pain, instantaneously reduces inflammation. I have seen some of the most mind-blowing things in my entire life putting these discs on people. It is by far some of the most rewarding work that I have ever gotten to do, is offer free treatments to people that are coming in as test patients at ANF seminars.
Oh, wow.
Because they come in, they are struggling, they're suffering, and in minutes they're walking out without pain, and they're looking at me like I have 5 heads, like, what did you do with my pain? Where did it go?
And I'm sure they wonder, is it coming back?
Exactly. And most of the time it's not, you know. However, there's a process to using the disc. One treatment is going to help you significantly. However, it's not going to fully heal you, because the process of ANF is retraining your nervous system how to do it on its own. Right? So just like I refer back to, like, learning, right? You can't teach a first grader 3rd grade English until you teach them 1st grade English, 2nd grade English, and then 3rd grade English.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah. And so with the discs and with energy in general, you cannot just instantaneously think that the body's going to start to be able to pick this optimized frequency up immediately. It needs practice. It needs learning, right? And so that's where the ANF is really beautiful, because yes, you're going to get results within 1 session, but over a span of a couple more sessions, your body's going to learn how to be able to fully do it on its own.
And that is definitely the place we want to put our bodies in, where we can start to regulate our own systems. I mean, I'm a Reiki master, and one of the things they teach us in Reiki is why you should bother to get these things called attunements. What a Reiki attunement is essentially a ceremony that a Reiki master teacher performs on you, who then opens your body up to a greater flow of energy from the universe. And you might say, well, shouldn't I have been inherently born with that? Yes, but through generations, we have been taught to not pay attention to this flow. And so much so that we actually our systems aren't able to regulate it anymore. It's the flow is kind of when you know something before it happens, when you can intuitively feel a loved one's energy with maybe out having talked to them, when you know something's dangerous is about to happen, and you avoid that situation and you watch it happen. So those sorts of things, some people are still much more open to, but they're a primary example of listening to that flow from the universe. So with the attunements, they open us up to a greater flow, and it has to be done in steps, because, for instance, my first attunement was so powerful. I spent like the next 2 weeks with I'd be driving down the highway and a song would come on and my crown chakra would start vibrating. I immediately wouldn't be able to see straight. I'd have to pull over on the side of the highway and be like, what the fuck is happening to me? I just could feel all sorts of new energy things. I was like, what have I done?
All these shifts. What's happening?
Yeah. And so I imagine that's kind of what you're getting at with the ANF therapy, with the body having to readjust to these new frequencies. Is
absolutely
a lot of people, especially with chronic pain and stuff, have not been absorbing the flow of the universe. They've been blocking their own flows from traumas, from with emotional pain and the like. So you start to apply these things, and now you have to teach them to read first grade English.
Yep, exactly. And I think you touched on a really beautiful point, is this aspect of not paying attention and why, right? And I truly believe this is why we as a society are sick and why there's so much chronic disease, because we aren't paying attention. And on a deeper level, we don't know how to pay attention. We've lost that connection with ourselves. We've lost our connection with our intuition, which is where there's some seriously beautiful work going on in the world right now, especially through female leaders that are teaching women to reconnect to themselves, to reconnect to their intuition. And some beautiful men's coaching and men's work is happening in that realm as well. And I'm so grateful to know people on both sides of that spectrum, because it's so important. And I do see the pendulum swinging in the other direction. And it starts with this level of awareness, to become more aware of how to pay more attention on a regular basis. Listen to your body, right? When you're going through some of the things like you're going through right now for you, right? Being able to understand that I'm having these things come up, I'm working through it, and I'm growing through it, right?
Yeah. And I'm also paying attention to the fact that it was a full moon last night.
Oh my God, this freaking full moon in Sagittarius.
It's like the strawberry supermoon.
You want to know how I feel about it?
Oh, tell me more. And so I, was paying attention to the moon is really close, and it's heightening my emotions right now.
Good Lord, yes.
One of my other best friends, she couldn't sleep at all last night because of the full moon, and you've had a lot of things going on because of the full moon, and so I'm like, my thoughts are running away with me right now, but maybe it's also because of the full moon, and maybe that trauma response was also triggered by the fact that I was 2 days away from having my period, so I was PMSing, and which I've never done before, really. I mean, I had my fallopian tubes removed in January, and so now I'm actually on my natural cycle for the first time in 12 years, 13 years.
It's so beautiful watching you go through that process and finding that homeostasis.
I feel very unhomeostasis as of last, the other week, but it's like, this is what it's like. I'm crazy. I'm literally a crazy person. Is this what most women do? They turn crazy. Many women do, and
well, that's what society terms it, right? It terms it this crazy, right? And you're getting at this aspect of the fact that there's so many things that influence your freaking body, like your hormones, your chemistry, what you're eating, like your sleep, like all these things play a role in your energy.
Yeah.
And that's where that awareness comes in, to understand, right? Like, where do you need support, right? What area is, and what maybe multiple areas are influencing how you're feeling. So you're looking at yourself right now from this observer perspective, the seat of self, as I like to call it. And you're
the seat of self?
The seat of self.
Seat.
Yep.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
I am seated.
Right. You're in the seat of self, right? And you're looking at, okay, what's influencing my mind and what I'm feeling right now? You've got the moon, you've got your hormones, right? Your cycle, you've got maybe your sleep patterns. You were talking about eating in what you had going on in Guatemala in comparison to what you've got going on now.
I am not sleeping great right now. I'm barely getting 6.5 hours a night. And that is where my best friend Lexi also helped me determine 6.5 hours is not enough for me.
Yeah.
It's not enough. And that's what I've been averaging for longer than I care to admit right now.
And what's so, and even for healers, like, we're constantly working on ourselves. We aren't freaking perfect.
Far from it.
Like, especially, like, for me, I do as much as I can to show up on social media as vulnerably as possible. Like, I want you to know that, yeah, like, we're going to talk about how to heal yourself, and we're also going to talk about the dark parts of what healing is like, right? What it's like to not want to show up, what it's like to feel challenged, what it's like to feel stressful. Yeah. And, like, I think a lot of people look at healers and they think that they're this light, this being that's always shining, and that's not the case. Like, we go through our shit too.
And often to become a healer, you've gone through exceptional amounts of shit.
Exceptional amounts.
to get to that place where you're ready to start helping others. It's because we've been through the shit and we've seen what works for us. We've felt what works for us, and we're just driven to help share that.
It's one of the things that I've found most powerful about my relationship with you is the fact that we are so open and so vulnerable about what we're going through. We are a support system, and we're both, like, moving through it. We're dealing with the shit. And in a way that we can then give back to others to support them in doing the same.
Exactly.
Right? And I love being able to have sisters that really do that together, that aren't avoiding it, that don't want to avoid the challenging conversations, that don't avoid looking at themselves really deeply in the mirror, on psychedelics or not.
As we do.
Yes. Because it's so important. It's so important to look at yourself. It's so important to evaluate where you're at, how you're feeling, where your energy is, how your sleep's been, like, and that's where that presence comes in, that awareness comes in, you know, and paying attention to yourself is what's going to allow you to be happy, to be healthy, and to live this life that feels really fucking good to you.
Yeah. And it's been very transformative for me since I moved down here to Huntington Beach about a year ago. And now I live closer to my best friend Lexi, and then you moved here. So we live also like 2 blocks away from each other.
Great.
And I have always traditionally been surrounded by people who have a very masculine approach to life, like myself, of like, I'm going to schedule this, I got to do this, I got to show up regardless. So especially as a TV show producer, there was no option to call it. Like, you told them you were sick and they were like, are you like on your deathbed, or can you come in today? You know, and so I would have to like, go in and then do the work of like 3 people in one day
while you're sick.
And you know, work 10 to 12-hour days regardless, and there was no option to be like, hey guys, I don't feel, this doesn't suit me today, I want to go home. And what I love about you and Lexi is you guys both really are in a lot of flow state, which is a much more feminine energy. Literally, by definition, if you compare the 2 masculine and feminine energies, feminine's more in flow, goes where the wind blows them. They're just as much as you can, right? Obviously, you have clients, you have to show up on time for them.
Yeah, intuitive, emotional, sensitive. Yeah. Yeah.
And so you guys have both been encouraging me a lot to listen more to my body, to get more in flow. And sometimes I'm like, you guys, this is fucking bullshit. Like, I don't have time to be in flow, you know? But then, especially as I start to listen to the little things that have been said, you know, like Lexi being like, maybe you should just get more sleep. maybe that would help a lot of things that you're going through. Like, maybe you should just listen to your body. Like, you're telling me you're super tired, but like, what if you got more sleep? I was like, what do you know? And then I started getting more sleep, and I was like, Lexi.
Yeah, Lexi.
You're right about another thing.
We live in the society that does not encourage us to be connected with our body. It does not encourage us to honor thy body, right? And in order to heal, in order to really dive deep into that personal growth, like, you've got to honor your body.
Yeah. How have you been honoring your body lately? Ooh, tell me more.
Yeah. The body work that you gave me and that I received today was definitely honoring my body and its needs. And the way that I've really been leaning into honoring my body and myself lately has been making requests.
Plural.
It's been making requests when I have needs and when I have desires, and asking others when I am desiring for those needs to be fulfilled. So really asking others for support when I need it, and recognizing when I don't want to do it alone. And another way that I've been really honoring my body is just listening. Over the last couple months, I've been around a lot of people going to multiple different events on the weekends, going away almost every single weekend for the last 6 or 7 weeks straight. And in these experiences, I've been listening to my body, listening to what my body's needs are. When in honoring when I want to be a part of the activities that everybody's engaging in, and when I don't, and when I want to retreat and be on my own and be by myself and have some peace and quiet time, and not feeling guilty about not going with the plan, and not feeling guilty about honoring myself and what my needs are. A couple of weekends ago, I went to one of my first ever really large festival, Lightning in a Bottle, and it was an incredible experience. It's been for a long time now, one of the biggest festivals that I've really wanted to go to, and it was my first, so it was great. And it was a beautiful experience, and halfway through, I realized I had nothing left. I had no energy left to give. I had no space left to receive. And I was no longer enjoying my experience. Now I had two options. I stay. I did drive somebody there with me, and I communicated prior that I don't know how long I'm going to want to stay. And so I listened to my body, and I honored myself in leaving. I had two options: leave and honor myself, or stay and push myself through the rest of the weekend. And I knew that pushing myself was not going to allow me to be at my highest vibrational state, which is going to influence how I feel and how I show up, which is then going to impact how I impact others. Right? Because my energy is always going to influence the energy of people around me. And so I left. 3 days early and didn't stay for the entire thing. And I went home, and I was really, really grateful that I did. Yeah. And so for me, honoring myself lately has looked like really listening, tuning into my body, letting go of the guilt, letting go of what other people might think about my choice, because at the end of the day, it's my choice, and it's what's best for me, and it's my life, not anyone else's.
Yeah, you're the one who has to stick through and live it.
Yeah. And you deal with the consequences of not listening.
Yeah.
And I'm all set with that. I'm tired of navigating the pain and the emotional stress and all the things that come with not listening to your body.
Yeah. I personally struggle with that specifically, of, changing my commitments based on how I feel, because I never, up until, I don't know, maybe like a year ago, I didn't know that was something you could do. And, but as I still struggle with wrapping my brain around, I don't always have to show up if I don't want to, and it's okay to cancel if that's what's going to put me in a better mental state to continue showing up, because I run a very busy schedule. But then sometimes I'm reminded, like yesterday, I really didn't want to show up to surf with my surf buddy at 7 a.m. And we checked the cams. I checked the cams, and it was shitty. And there was like nobody out. It was that shitty. And I was getting about 5.5 hours of sleep that night, and I overslept. I woke up at 6:30. I'm supposed to be there at 7. I usually try to get up at 5:30 or 5 when I've got to be there at that time. And I kicked myself out the door because I was like, you love surfing, go. And I was like, I just really don't want to. And so I went, and it starts drizzling, and and he's like, well, I'm going to go anyways. And I was like, dang it, as long as you're going to go, I'm going to go. I guess I'll just paddle, and if I hate it, I'll come out. Because he was the guy who taught me if the amount of effort doesn't outweigh the amount of fun you're having, then you should probably go in. And that really applies to days when there's like really strong currents and you're just having no fun and you're getting worked. And just go in. Just go in. So we paddled out, and while the surf was like really shitty, we had the most amazing dolphin experience that day. The most amazing. And there was like no one else out. Like where we were, there were maybe a couple people at the pier, but we were sort of down from the pier. And we're the only 2 people around. Like you couldn't even see the ones at the pier. And this pod of dolphins came through for like 10 minutes, and then they'd come back for another 10 minutes, and then they'd go away, they'd come back for another 10 minutes. Like he and I both like jumped off our boards and were swimming in the water with the dolphin, listening to them underwater, which I haven't really had a chance to hear them much underwater since I've been here. And it's just like, sure, the surf was shitty, but I had the most powerful dolphin experience yesterday. And dolphins were jumping in the waves together, jumping in waves with us. Cool. Like it was just, I ended up being so glad I went. And I sometimes remind myself that's why I pack my schedule full of things that I know I will want and desire to do, even if like when I get there I don't want to do them. Yeah. But I like your way better.
There's lots of ways, right? And sometimes it works out like that, where sometimes the thing that you don't want to do at all really ends up being a really beautiful experience. And other times you there's consequences on the other end of that, right? Like you may have been really tired last night at the end of the day.
I was really tired. And I did it again at 7 a.m. and I did not get enough sleep.
And so there's this balance, right? And it's a matter of like listening to what feels good for you, what feels in alignment for your day. And that's kind of where that flow comes in, right? It's like, what's in alignment for you,
Yeah. I am feeling like a day off coming up, or I'm also going camping with one of my best friends tomorrow, who I'm going to interview for this podcast. Yes. So look forward to Ben Snowden on the next episode. But yeah, for me also, that's like, okay, well, it's 5.5 hours, almost 6 hours of driving to get there. It's not like a full rest day, but definitely excited to be off the grid and honoring some of that flow and just regroup in the desert.
I'm excited for you. I think reconnecting with Mother Nature is always a very, very healing experience.
Yeah. And luckily that's what surfing does for me too.
Helps you connect with Mother Nature.
Yeah. So anytime I'm like, should I go? Should I not go? It's like, yes, always go get in the ocean. Yeah. Always. When in doubt, just get in the ocean.
Can't feel worse after getting in the ocean.
Yeah. So I want to be respectful of your time. I know you have to get out of here today, but how can my listeners keep up with you? How can they book with you? What's your website?
Yeah, so you can find me at leahdrew.com, and you can find me anywhere on any platform. My company is Mind Body with Leah, and so search Mind Body with Leah, Leah, on all platforms. You'll find me on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure being able to sit and just riff with you on all things that we do in our spare time anyways.
Right.
But now we get to just share it with these beautiful people.
It's great. And I'm going to have you on so many more times. More. Always more. Jinx. All right. Well, I love you. Thank you so much.
I love you. Thank you, Barrett.
Until next time.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and review this podcast wherever you're listening. I'm so grateful to have you on this journey with me. Until next time.